Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a major update on the Greenland situation with Denmark and Copenhagen putting out a six-word statement. They're very pissed off. They're saying, yeah, Trump's trying to annex it. We're angry. We don't like this, even though we're not even close to Greenland, even though their citizens want to be independent of us, even though there's a massive ocean separating, even though the United States now has Greenland under North American sphere of influence, under the U.S. North American command post. We're going to defend Greenland, but we can't have Greenland. And they're also giving us more control over our military base in Greenland on top of all of that. So there's some mixed signals here. But Denmark is still saying, we know Trump wants it. We know it's a legacy play. We're not giving it up easily. And if Trump wants it, it's going to be a big problem with the EU and with NATO. And they know that the US is daddy. And that's why we've got another article talking about Denmark basically saying, yes, we agree to this certain agreement under the Biden administration. We're going to stick to it, even though some people within their parliament are not too happy. It's basically the United States having control of certain aspects and land territory within Greenland. But take a look at this. Denmark issues six-word warning to Trump. You can see down here it says their foreign minister has issued a six-word warning to Trump as concerns grow over the United States' renewed interest in Greenland. And these are more. This is a significant play by Trump, I think, to get Greenland. When you look at him sending Vance there, originally sending Don Jr., talking about it, saying, being asked by Fox News and admitting, he's like, yeah, I admit we're probably going to have to send in some type of operation to make sure we secure it. Whatever that means. I mean, it's a military operation, but there's no fighting on Greenland. That's the point. It would just be, we just take it over. It'd be more of a diplomatic thing. The problem is to get something like this going, it's almost like you have to force the hand of both Denmark and Greenland if you don't have a good relationship with them, because ideally you would just buy Greenland from Denmark and it would be this kind of neutral type thing, or preferably Denmark would have a neutral perspective based off of just modern times, based off of the size of Denmark in relation to them not being able to patrol or really maintain security over Greenland. The United States can do it a lot easier based off of our massive economy and our massive military budget. And you would like it to be very just we want a neutral thing. This is a process, is what happens. There's territory changes sometimes. It's just a way of life, but that's not what they want. They're saying, no, we're not giving it up at all. Even though they lose a bunch of money, they give money to Greenland, they still want control of Greenland. They like having the Arctic power, and they know it's going to be very valuable in the future. And they would probably much rather make it some type of just random. I mean, I think what would happen eventually if this situation played out 20, 30 years down the line, it is clear that Denmark does fully want to be independent, it's clear that Greenland does fully want to be independent of Denmark. What does that look like exactly? Well, it probably looks like a long-term process that doesn't change much. It really would only change, I think, the patrolling of Greenland from a Denmark problem to an EU problem, and the EU would have to patrol and secure Greenland, which, if you look at where Greenland is located, it does not make much sense for it to be under EU's jurisdiction. But, I mean, I think that's what it would lead to. Because you look at Greenland right now, the population is so small, but just taking, their citizens, they're a lot more EU-centric than they are US in terms of their beliefs, in terms of them being a lot more liberal than the United States. But does that really matter? If there was 5 million people, it would probably matter a lot. The fact that there's 57,000 people, I mean, that's a very, very small number. So you have to factor that in. But let's see what this foreign minister says. Rasmussen, quote, "It can never be about annexation," as he warned the issue was far from over. The comments come after Trump suggested earlier this year the U.S. could take Greenland, a semi-autonomous Arctic territory belonging to Denmark, by military or economic means. Although the invasion is seen as highly unlikely, Rasmussen stressed that Denmark is taking the comments seriously. He says, quote, "We do not consider a military annexation as anything which likely could happen, not at all. Having said that, it's not that we consider this case solved. I've always been arguing that you should take Trump seriously, but not necessarily literally." Well, when it comes to Trump himself, he does want Greenland. Now, it's one of those thread the needle situations to where this is it's a very unpopular thing in the United States, Trump doing this. Believe it or not, when they talk about Trump being a fascist, and that's like one of the things, they talk about a situation like this, like him taking, like this is what they cite because it's such a ridiculous claim. So they have to cite like, oh, he's going to take Greenland. Like, it's like, but what about the complexity of the situation with Greenland and the fact that I mean, there is influence from China now. Do you really want China to have influence over Greenland? I don't think anyone wants that. Do you really understand they have 57,000 people? Do you understand that we can secure the island better? It's becoming more and more important. I even think some liberals strategically probably admit, yeah, what Trump is doing. I mean, you take a look at the strategists within the Democratic Party. Some of them say, yeah, we're probably going to have to take over the northern territories of Canada as well. This is just what happens as the situation evolves in the Arctic and it becomes more and more important. We have to babysit these smaller countries. And it's not because, oh, we're fascists, we want to take over all this land. Yes, Trump does want to expand the territory, but the overall point, we need the Arctic control. We need the shipping lanes control. We need the access to the Arctic Ocean. We need access to the Northwest Passages. We need access through the Davis Strait, Baffin Bay, the sea off of the eastern side of Greenland. And so all of this is taken into account, and we realize how strong we are, and we realize the location, and it's all coming together. That's why Trump changed the command post, the control, from European to North American, because that's where Greenland is located. It is right next to Canada, and this is a thing that Trump wants. And look, you could say, well, maybe we could do some type of deal with Greenland to extract minerals, but Trump wants the territory, right? He wants the territory. You know, it's just like Trump changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. These are symbolic things. This is a territorial expansion. Maybe at a certain point, Greenland becomes a state. They get migration from the United States. I don't think their citizens would like that too much, but I think their life situations would be improved significantly with U.S. involvement. I think we would really, really help them versus what, Denmark is giving them. You can see it also says here, quote, "But I also realize that these two things come closer and closer in comparison with his first term, so we take it very, very seriously." Well, the first term, if you remember the timeline, he offered to buy Greenland. People thought it was a complete joke, but it happened in like 2019. It happened in the second half of his first term. This is a lot different of a Trump. He's more tactical, and he came out even before Inauguration Day and said that he wanted Greenland. It's very important to him. And whether or not he can get it and do it in a way that, I mean, ideally, the way we would do it is we would buy it from Denmark and the people of Greenland would be kind of neutral on it. Obviously, you're not winning the PR battle in terms of that. You're not winning the propaganda war. Now, there's also been reports Trump hasn't even started the propaganda blitz on this situation, but ideally, that's what would happen. It seems like it's going to be the easy way or the hard way. That's what Trump has said. Well, if it's the hard way, we might have to force it if Trump really wants it. Because if he lets the situation play out as is, unless there's some type of force exuded in the form of maybe some type of threat or some type of securing of Greenland, you're not going to be able to take Greenland. It's not like they're offering it. You have to kind of, there's going to be, at some point, there's going to have to be something that happens, whether it's Trump really becoming aggressive rather than just talking, or there being some type of threat about leaving NATO or something like that, if you really want to take Greenland within his term. But again, the problem is domestically, this is not a popular thing in the United States. Now, people have to realize, I mean, this will be big, especially when it comes to diversification of rare earth minerals. There's a lot you can do here. Would Trump consider settling for some type of huge encompassing mineral deal to where we have access to mining within Greenland, but it's technically still under Denmark's control? Or would it, I mean, at that point, maybe they could fully leave Denmark and just do some type of deal with us to where they'd be their own independent country, but we would have access to their resources. And they would get a cut of the resource extraction because they don't have the infrastructure set up in place, the investment to be able to do it themselves. We could certainly help with that. So there's a number of different things that could happen, but I think this is a symbolic thing with Trump, and that's just the reality when it comes to that. And you've got this Denmark finalizing U.S. defense deal despite Greenland gripes. President Trump refuses to rule out forcibly annexing Greenland, yet the Danish parliament just passed a law allowing U.S. military free access to bases. Why? Well, because we're so much more powerful than they are. And I believe this was something that this called the Defense Cooperation Agreement, the DCA. This was something done originally in 2023. It just got signed in. At first glance, it doesn't seem to make any sense. The U.S. president has deeply rattled Denmark by reiterating several times that he may invade and occupy the semi-autonomous island of Greenland for national security reasons, but rather than looking at how it could bolster its national defenses against the possible, even if unlikely, incursion, the Danish parliament on June 11th overwhelmingly approved an agreement to let the U.S. military enter the country whenever it wants, for whatever reason it sees fit. Well, that gives us an invitation to secure the island. Now, but this just shows you the level. I mean, these people, they feel so threatened by the United States and how bad we are, yet they sign a deal with us because they know they need U.S. help in U.S. defense, and they need us on their good side. And so it just shows you how ridiculous it all is. They clutch their pearls, they get so angry. Then they sign this, which allows us to enter whenever we see fit. I mean, it's crazy. It says, why would they advance the deal now? We didn't have an option but to say yes, according to the Royal Danish Defense College military analyst. That's a mouthful. But yeah, so they signed this deal. It's just crazy. So they signed this deal allowing us to have full access to Greenland. You can see this analyst says he doesn't think a land grab is actually likely to happen regardless of Trump's bluster, so he advises just keeping Danish angst under wraps. You saw what happened to Zelensky when the Ukraine president tries to argue with Trump. He was blown out of the water, and it was fantastic television. We're not in a position where we want to do that, so you need to be tactical about it. Well, I mean, you realize Trump's term is over in a few years, and so maybe they think they can wait him out and a Democrat will win and it won't be a problem. That's probably what it is. Maybe it's a lame duck period thing for Trump, but even that becomes very messy. I mean, based on the term limits, I mean, if Trump had a longer period, they probably wouldn't be saying this in terms of Trump just, or them not taking Trump's threats too seriously. But I mean, I don't really think they know how to judge the situation with Trump, and they don't really know what Trump's going to do. I think Trump really wants Greenland. The question is, how far will he push it? Because I think he's probably going to have to push it pretty far to get it. This is not something, you can try and nudge them a little bit, but it seems like they're not interested in giving up the territory. So there's going to have to be, you're going to have to go from a nudge to a push. And what does that push look like? Does it look like some type of securing the island? Does it look like some type of threat? I don't know what it would look like, but I think there's going to have to be more escalation from Trump. It's really been only vocalized at this point, and there's been some other things under the table that have been done. There's been some visits to Greenland, but this is something to where, well, if you really want it, there's going to have to be more pressure exuded onto Denmark, and you could also try and win the propaganda war within Greenland. It is a small amount of people. It's a small amount of government officials, leadership. There's potentially ways to do it. I mean, I don't know the intelligence. They might say, well, listen, these people are entrenched and they think Trump is terrible. They're not changing. Well, we'll have to reassess if they think that. I mean, you would think there could be some type of propaganda campaign that's done to get these people on the U.S. side. I mean, the other problem is these people really don't have much of an appetite to extracting their own resources. They don't really care about mining. Now, their officials have come out and said, and I think they've done a deal now with the EU to do some type of mining operation, but the public opinion within Greenland, believe it or not, even with all of their minerals, is not too high on the idea of the extraction of minerals to be able to potentially make their country more wealthy. But they also have to realize if you want to be independent, you are getting 1/4 of your GDP in subsidies from Denmark. So if you become independent, what does that dry up? Well, it wouldn't dry up. I think it would go to the EU doing it and giving the subsidies. And then there would be some type of probably other mineral deal or defense agreement with the EU, probably. That would be my guess if they became independent of Denmark. They can never, Greenland cannot operate independently as is because of the subsidies that they get, because of the fact that they do not have their own defense. Their defense is, it's from Denmark. They're not allowed to have any type of military. So even if they become independent, they're going to need some type of deal to where they're independent, but there's a watchdog. The watchdog would probably be the EU, at least where it's trending right now. The question is, can Trump change that and make the watchdog, well, for Trump, it wouldn't be a watchdog, it would be just a U.S. territory. The island would be a U.S. territory. And you would compare it to Alaska. You know, Alaska became part of the United States, and it was a territory for many, many decades before it became a state in the 1950s because they didn't have the population. And maybe Greenland is Alaska 2.0. It's a colder climate. It's got access to the Arctic. And, you know, we were able to buy Alaska from the Russian Empire. This is a situation to where it would be nice if Denmark, realizing the current parameters of the world, realizing how far away Greenland is, realizing that Greenland is closer to North America, realizing that the United States, we are already in an agreement with you. We are in a defense pact with you. We are the richest country in the world. We have the by far biggest military defense spending in the world, the most sophisticated defense technology in the world. Why would you want to fracture your relationship as a very small country? Very small country. Sure, you're still so clustered with the EU, but with the United States, you want to fracture your relationship with us over a semi-autonomous territory that it's costing you money to keep afloat in the amount of subsidies you're giving them. I understand they can say, well, we want it because the land is important because of Arctic control. But what can you really do with it? You're a small country with a small population relative to the United States. This is a territory in between, this is within the NATO alliance. Do you think most of the NATO countries should want the United States to have full control of Greenland? It's closer to the United States, or even a joint partnership. I mean, there's really no reason to have a joint partnership with Canada just because they're so much weaker compared to us. But, you know, even a US-Canadian type control over Greenland would make much more sense than Denmark's current claim over Greenland. And again, I think based off of just how things are trending in the modern sense, in 20 or 30 years, Greenland becomes independent. Well, not really. They would still have they would be entrenched with the EU. They'd be entrenched with them. We would rather do, if they want to become independent, and I don't know if there's any flexibility from Trump on this because he hasn't really talked about it. He's just talked about we want the island and that's it. But if they were to become independent, we could do some type of advanced deal with Greenland to be able to extract resources. They would get a cut of the resources. We would also be able to have multiple bases on Greenland. We already have a base. We already have a footprint on the island. And we would be able to give them defense because they would need it. That's not to say they would be invaded or anything. I mean, they're located in a pretty optimal spot in terms of any type of Eastern threats. But it just comes down to, does Trump want it? He wants it as a territory. And so to get it as a territory, there's going to have to be escalation in some form, or at least threats that force some type of change of opinion from Denmark. Or if you think Denmark doesn't have the power, which, I mean, they technically still control it, even though they've lost a lot of the localized control, the government. They still technically control it, and we could just say, you know what, you need to give it to us. We're done with it. We don't think NATO is going to do anything against us. They're going to invoke Article 5 against the number one biggest superpower of the engraved. Think about how crazy that is. You know, they've got Russia to deal with, and they're deeply afraid of Russia potentially going after some of the other Baltic states. They're really going to alienate the United States over us potentially trying to acquire Greenland. I don't know. It doesn't seem very likely, but we'll have to see what ends up happening. Either way, guys, make sure you like the video down below. Also, follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.